What is going on, everybody? Welcome into Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. That's right. It's your Friday, Week 14 game day preview, right? We're taking a
Yeah.
look at it. I'm Howard Bender. With me today, actually, not Adam Ronis, but Jon Impemba. Adam Ronis on assignment, actually, this weekend. So you won't get a chance to see him, but, obviously he's still updating our weekly rankings on the website regularly. So you can check those out. But Jon, welcome into the show here. And how you feeling about Week 14?
Yeah, and I'm actually doing okay, even with the number of injuries that are coming up, people being ruled out today, getting word that guys like Alan Lazard are going to be limited now. Julio ruled out, Antonio Gibson ruled out. So I'm glad we're getting this information now and not like sweating it out on Sunday with like they're going to go through pregame warmups and we'll find out and not knowing what's going on. So give us the information now and let us at least plan ahead.
I love that the first player that you mentioned was Alan Lazard.
Well, it impacts me the most because I
feel like that is like I feel like you had some sort of a really nice Packers stack going.
Yeah, I had some stake in Alan Lazard this week, and now he's limited to, limited to a sense. They said they're not going to play him 60 snaps. Well, how many snaps does that take up in terms of their offense? Is he going to play 50 snaps, but that's going to be 70% of their snaps, right? Maybe more clarity would be needed. But yeah, I have some Lazard shares. We're in the playoffs. Those things are important to me now. So
I hear you. That's right. Week 14 does bring about the playoffs for the majority of leagues. There are some leagues that do wrap up in Week 14 in their regular season and then move on to the playoffs weeks 15, 16, and 17. So what Jon and I are going to do is we're going to go through each one of the games. We're going to highlight a couple of things about each game that are relevant to fantasy, whether it's seasonal or DFS. And hopefully we keep you guys nicely informed on what you're going to have to do this coming weekend. Obviously, if you're talking DFS, Jon and I will, we've got the podcast up already on fantasyalarm.com. We did that recorded last night. I've got the DFS playbook coming out on Saturday morning. And then, of course, all the work that the Fantasy Alarm team puts in throughout the weekend. So let's get you guys geared up and ready. And Jon, will start off with the early games, the 1 p.m. games. Chiefs-Dolphins. Kind of an interesting matchup here, only because you've got the Miami Dolphins, who their defense has just been absolutely spectacular. You've got the Chiefs, who really haven't looked as explosive as they usually do. Thoughts on this game, seasonal or DFS, doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I still think we're going to go with the Chiefs in this one. I think, we did the Ante-Up podcast last night as well, which I think is available now for you to listen to. And what you said, the spread was 7.5 here. Like, it wasn't a crazy spread for KC being on the road against Miami, but I don't think Tua is going to be able to sling it, and if it gets into a shootout with KC. And while you said, their offense maybe hasn't, been as potent maybe lately. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily true either, even though they struggled against Denver. They did have that touchdown, which nobody challenged, and that could have changed, the outlook of that game as well. So I still think Kansas City's going to win this one easily. I like Mahomes, no problems there against Miami's defense. In my opinion, they still have Hill and Kelsey. Hard for anybody to lock them down for a whole game. So, I think ultimately, Tua is not going to be able to keep up in this one.
How are you feeling about Myles Gaskin? The Chiefs don't defend against the run very well. It sounds like Gaskin's going to be all alone in the backfield again this week, which means full complement of touches. He gets involved in the passing game. Are you afraid that the Chiefs are just going to kind of blow up the Dolphins and force them into a passing mode the entire time? Or can you still get away with using Gaskin in your lineups?
I mean, I think early on they're going to try to at least control the clock with the running game. So I think Gaskin's going to be fine. And like you said, the fact that he is involved in the passing game, keeps on the field for the majority of the game. He played 71% of the snaps in his return. He played 88% of the snaps in the game before he got injured. So, Gaskin's really the only running back that they put on the field for the most part. So, do I think his upside is as high in this sort of matchup because the way the game script is going to go? Probably not. They had that big lead against Cincinnati last week, and they were able to really grind out the clock and give them the 20-plus carries. But, I still think there's a decent floor here. I just wonder if they'll really have that upside this week without scoring.
All right. Tennessee's going up against Jacksonville. Titans are favored by 7.5 in this game. Jacksonville's been playing some competitive ball. James Robinson looks great. They've got hopefully DJ Chark is at full health right now. Colin Johnson, the rookie, seems to be making a statement for himself. And then on the other side, it's all Derrick Henry, but you're also looking at Corey Davis. A.J. Brown sounds like he's going to play. Thoughts on this game here?
I mean, we're expecting a lot of points, I think, scored between, two teams that don't have good defenses. Not only is the fact that, Tennessee has all those weapons, with Davis and Brown and Henry, like you said, they're getting Jonnu Smith back this week. Adam Humphries is on IR with a concussion, so Jonnu's going to be more in the passing game, being utilized more in the passing attack. So it just increases the upside for points being scored. So I really like everybody in this offense, even with Jacksonville, and they have Mike Glennon at quarterback. Chark was still targeted 7 times in his return last week. You mentioned Colin Johnson, Laviska Shenault found the end zone. You've liked Tyler Eifert since Glennon's been the quarterback, and then Robinson gets 100% of the team's red zone carries, and he's on the field pretty much all game for them. So I really think fantasy wise, this is a great matchup on both sides. And I think we're going to be a lot of exposure in DFS to this game. In seasonal, I wouldn't really shy away from playing anybody.
Let's pump the brakes on the Tyler Eifert love here for a
You're
brief
the
moment.
one that's been touting Tyler Eifert.
It's not that I've been touting Tyler Eifert. All I'm saying is that if you're not going to pay up for guys like Kelsey or Waller, and you're going to go chasing touchdowns, well, then go chase a touchdown from Tyler Eifert. He's actually been more heavily involved in the past.
6 targets last week, all 6 catches, 45 yards. So listen, if you're spending down in DFS, sure, but even then, if you're in a PPR league, he's giving you 10 fantasy points in back-to-back weeks. So what more are you looking for out of a guy? So
who would you rather have, Tyler Eifert, Cole Kmet, or Drew Sample?
I'd probably rank that Kmet, Eifert, and Sample. I understand what Sample's been doing lately, given the quarterback situation there in Cincinnati, but I think the other two at least have a little bit more upside.
It's like scraping the bottom of the barrel.
It is.
Scraping.
So the tight end position has been scraping the bottom of the barrel outside of having, Kelsey, Wall, or Andrews basically all year. So
I know. I need a manicure, man. My nails are just filled with muck. It's a nightmare. Arizona taking on the Giants. Arizona, here we go. Kyler Murray has not, again, we're hoping that Kyler Murray was going to look a little bit better last week. He, again, did not run a whole lot. That's 3 straight weeks of not a lot of running from Kyler Murray. They're traveling across country against a very improved Giants defense. Giants are a team that's actually been covering the spread a ton also. I look at this game and I think that, the Cardinals are a team who, they've lost 4 of their last 5, and the one game that they did win was that Hail Mary bomb to Hopkins. Was it Hopkins? Yeah,
it was Hopkins. Yeah.
So to me, the Cardinals, it's a rough team. I don't know how you trust them.
I don't trust them. I definitely don't like them being on the road. And we just saw the Giants go into Seattle and beat Russell Wilson in that offense. I think that offense is better than Arizona's. And right now you're dealing with Kyler Murray, where I don't think he's 100%. I know he threw for 3 touchdowns last week, but he's not running at all. This is a guy that was maybe on pace to run for over 1,000 yards and have double-digit rushing touchdowns. And now to protect that, shoulder with the AC joint that he's got, he's not running. The passing yardage has been down. So, yeah, I'm worried about Kyler's health here. DeAndre Hopkins is now banged up as well. He's got multiple injuries that's causing him to miss practice. Kenyon Drake has been missing practice this week, being limited. There's a lot of problems there in Arizona. Now they're getting a defense that's playing really well right now. So I'm in on the Giants. Again, we talked about it on the Fantasy Slam DFS podcast last night. $2,600 for the Giants defense on DraftKings this week is my top spend down option. I think there's some nice upside here.
I definitely agree. Minnesota, Tampa Bay. This one's an interesting one. You've got the Bucks looking for a big game out of Tom Brady. The late word now is that Mike Evans is expected to play. He sat out of practice yesterday, which was a little disturbing. Bruce Arians talking up our good friend Antonio Brown. Right. Ronald Jones has looked good in the backfield. The Vikings defense, not good, but we also know that Tampa Bay's defense, as vaunted as it's been, has also been giving up some points also. So now I look on the other side and Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. This is another game. The over-under is 53. We're expecting some fireworks.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing there is that Alexander Madison's been ruled out again, which means they don't really have a backup running back to spell Dalvin Cook. For better or for worse, really tough run defense here going up against Tampa Bay. But last week in No Madison, Cook played 87% of the offensive snaps. This is his second highest total all season long. So they really, gave him the football and had him run against Jacksonville. But to your point, the receivers in this matchup for Minnesota have been really going off. Justin Jefferson looking like a potential rookie of the year candidate. Alan Thielen came back, from his COVID issue and Purdue. So I think this is going to be an interesting game here. We know Minnesota's defense isn't good. I think the sneaky play, and again, something that we touched upon on the DFS podcast last night, is I think this could be a Ronald Jones game here, where if Tampa Bay gets out to a lead, they're not going to need Fournette as much in the passing game, and they just run the football up against this bad Vikings run defense, and Jones could have himself quite a day.
Have you have they finished that Tom Brady tattoo on your back? Like the last I heard, you were going in for like a third session. For those of you who don't know, John actually has a ginormous Tom Brady face in his back, and it takes up his entire back. And I like the way, the first picture that I saw, John, because the eyes really popped, like real blue there.
Yeah.
Are you done with that tattoo yet?
Well, he's got a chiseled jaw and, nice blue eyes, and, everything there is great about Tom. No, not complete, though, but I'll be sure to send you the first picture when it's done.
I can't wait. It's going to be beautiful. I'm getting all emotional just thinking about it, John. Just thinking about it.
20 years, Howard, he was in my life leading my teams to championships, so... I have some appreciation for what he was able to do for the Patriots organization. I wish, obviously, he was still in New England, so I didn't have to suffer through whatever the heck Cam Newton's doing at quarterback. But it is what it is. We'll move on. We'll get better. And the Patriots
you know what? I want to deviate from the plan just for a quick second. Your thoughts on the company TB12 applying for Paycheck Protection Program, got like a near $1 million loan. For all of that. And then Tom Brady went out and spent like $1 million on a speedboat.
Yeah, well, you know what? You need that money to pay your employees. The protection programs out there for companies to use. If you're going to apply for it, you apply for it. Listen, there's a lot of shady loopholes in the government and the way these things work. We can get into days kind of conversations about how companies like Amazon don't pay taxes and they're $1 billion organization. But, yeah, that's for everybody else to figure out. Not really our job, unfortunately.
One day I will get you to admit that you hate Tom Brady.
Don't hate Tom. I'll never hate Tom Brady. There's no reason. I hated Tom Brady slightly when he told the Rays to bring it home during the World Series.
That's right.
I was like, all right.
All right, let's get back to the games here. Houston Texans, they're traveling to Chicago. Deshaun Watson looked a little lost not having his baby boy Will Fuller last week, but he did find himself,
did he look lost? Because he had two receivers with over 100 yards in that game.
Right, but, listen, did he throw a touchdown pass?
No, he did not throw a touchdown pass. He did not throw
no touchdown passes, one interception. He did rush for one touchdown. Not the game that you usually expect from Deshaun Watson. Now he's got a tougher Bears defense. Are you a believer in Kiki Kute and Chad Hansen? Can these guys actually light it up for a second week in a row?
I believe in the volume of their abilities. I think if they get enough targets, they're going to be able to produce. Because I do think Deshaun Watson is a very good quarterback. And, against a tough Colts defense with, as you said, missing his binky there and Will Fuller, he still completed almost 70% of his passes for 340 yards. So now you're getting a Chicago defense, which is also pretty decent. But, this is going to be a game where I think it's actually going to be pretty close again. I don't think, Chicago is really a team that's going to be capable of blowing anybody out. And David Johnson may not play now. So Deshaun's going to have to throw even more in this game. So I definitely believe. I think Watson can put up a good game here.
First time ever that Will Fuller's ever been called a binky.
He is, right? Isn't that the correlation there? He's number one receiver. So
it worked for me, man. It worked for me. All right. Dallas Cowboys taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. It is the Andy Dalton revenge game narrative.
Yes.
It's in play here. It's one of the best, right? So give me your thoughts on this game.
I mean, it's ugly for sure if you're looking at the two teams that are involved, but from a fantasy perspective, I think it's great matchups on both sides of the football for both teams. You have a bad Dallas defense, you have a bad Bengals defense. Pretty much everybody here is going to be in play to an extent. Do you trust Brandon Allen? Not really, but is it likely that Higgins and Boyd can get open against Dallas? Probably. So Allen's going to at least have an opportunity to throw him the football. This is a great spot for Andy Dalton. I think I'm actually expecting a big game out of him for that whole, revenge narrative reason there. Plus, they still have a very capable offense in terms of skill players. Cooper, Lamb, Gallup, Elliott, even Dalton Schultz this year have all been very productive. So now you're talking about a soft defense for them to go up against. I think, the offensive line won't have as much trouble against this Bengals defensive front, and it's going to allow Dalton to have more time to throw. For DFS purposes, pretty much everybody in this game is undervalued with the exception of Amari Cooper. Cooper's probably the only one that's priced appropriately, at like 6,500, I think it is, or somewhere in the mid 6Ks. 65, yep. And Zeke, well, though he's priced, I think it's $6,600. It's cheaper than what we're used to, like elite Ezekiel Elliott being, in the upper seven. So at 66, I see Elliott, and I think of him kind of as a bargain here in this spot. Now, is he going to be healthy enough to go? Is he going to play? I know you alluded to the fact that Jim Bowden thinks maybe he won't play, this week because of the matchup. They're not playing for anything. But overall, I mean, Lamb's under 5K on DraftKings, Gallup's under 4K, Dalton's 5,500. It's really cheap across the board in this game.
Yeah, I actually put together a little bit of a DFS lineup just to see what it would look like. Andy Dalton stacked up with CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. And then coming back the other way, Tyler Boyd, who was only $4,900 on DK as well. And then all of a sudden you manipulate that, and I've got Derrick Henry, I've got Austin Eckler in there. I think I even squeezed in Devontae Adams as well. So how chalky do you think that Cowboy stack is going to be this week?
I mean, usually we talk about like the Dallas bump, but in years, this year, because of how bad they've been, the ownership really hasn't always been there. But I can see this week being the week. Again, the first person I looked at on the slate was noticing that Lamb was under 5K, and I was like, oh, like that just seems like someone that everybody is going to put in their lineup. Even though Gallup has been seeing a lot more look from Dalton as well, I just that target share and the value on these guys is really going to send people stacking them and building higher guys around them.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's go to Denver against Carolina. I just saw Curtis Samuel was removed from the COVID reserve list. I haven't seen anything on DJ Moore yet.
So I saw something on DJ Moore saying he's unlikely to play. So that definitely puts Samuel for sure on my radar this week. Knowing that no more, knowing that McCaffrey won't be there either. I just love that versatility that he brings.
So you're in on Samuel. You're in on Robbie Anderson.
A little bit less because I feel like Samuel, in the way that he. Yeah, I think because Moore's going to be out, you'll probably see Anderson maybe run some deeper routes. And, from the article that Andrew Cooper wrote earlier this year, sort of highlighting, why Moore struggles, or more so because he was running the deeper patterns, and Bridgewater isn't that type of quarterback. So if they kind of switch it up and have Samuel running more of these underneath, these more gadget plays, I think he's going to have a little bit more value than Anderson. But, knowing that there's only two of them now to feed instead of three, against Denver, I still think that Anderson could have some GPP upside.
Any love for any of the Denver Broncos? I know that you liked Melvin Gordon because of his price tag in DFS.
Yeah.
But if you're playing seasonal, if you're looking at your playoffs right now, are you still looking at Melvin Gordon as a guy you need to start?
I still think you have to start him. Listen, he hasn't played less than 50% of the snaps all season long. So, while it's definitely a timeshare, there are other games where, if they're more competitive, where they have to throw the football a little bit, he's on the field more than Lindsey. One, because he's a better pass catcher, even though they haven't really utilized that skill set now in some time, but he's a much better pass blocker as well than Lindsey. So Gordon, to me, is still the guy to own. I think when they get in the red zone, he's going to be the one getting the work. So if you have him, I have no problem starting him. You just have to temper your expectations, right? Like, this isn't the Chargers version of Melvin Gordon. He's probably a guy that's going to maybe give you 10 points, 15-point upside max, in PPR leagues, but knowing the fact that he's seeing the lion's share of the work makes me more appealing to him than Lindsey.
Let's move over to the afternoon games, the 4 p.m. start. New York Jets at the Seattle Seahawks. Jets, the ultimate slump busters, right? Come on. So, yeah, Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Chris Carson, start them all. The Jets are looking at the possibility of Jamison Crowder possibly being out now. We're looking at him being limited in practice, showing up late on the injury report. We know Denzel Mims is also out as well, which basically leaves them as Brashad Perriman and Ty Johnson as their two biggest guys. So obviously in seasonal, there's zero interest in the Jets. We can just kind of push them aside unless Jamison Crowder is playing. Then
I would still play. I would consider Perriman.
Yeah.
Listen, there's only two receivers, and this is a defense you can throw against. So, if he's on, the shoulder, him being limited in practice, he's been limited in practice basically all year with this shoulder injury. So it's really not something that's going to keep him out of the game. So, and his target share aside from last week was still pretty strong. So I'm not totally against Perriman if you're in a league that starts 3 wide receivers or a league that starts, multiple wide receivers and multiple flex plays. If you lost Julio Jones today, and you need a guy off waivers, maybe if you're not comfortable with your bench, then I think Perriman could be someone to grab.
Nice. Very nice.
It is supposed to rain in Seattle, Howard. Did you see that? It's supposed to. We have 80% chance of rain, up to 1/4 inch of rain on Sunday in Seattle. Winds 5 to 10 miles an hour.
How in the world do you build a stadium in Seattle and not put a dome over it? Like, I don't understand that.
I don't either.
Is because football is supposed to be played in the rain? Like, that to me made absolutely no sense. But
nope. But if it does rain like that, the running games become more prevalent there.
Sure do. I also then might be intrigued by the Jets with the 13.5 points.
Yeah, it's possible. They're so bad though, but it's possible.
Colts taking on the Raiders here. Colts, they are a 3-point favorite here on the road. Man, I got to tell you, last week was the get-right game for Derek Carr and company, as we expected it to be. Now they take on one of the premium defenses in the NFL. Can Derek Carr not screw this one up? Because I got to tell you, if there's one play in this game that I really want in on, and that's the Indianapolis defense.
And they're going to have to throw again. There is no Josh Jacobs. I think he's questionable to play or limit. He returned to practice yesterday in a limited fashion. So I guess we'll see if he's good to go. And I thought earlier reports said he was unlikely to suit up this week. But if he's out, they can't really rely on Booker to be an every down running back against the Colts. So, if they force him into throwing the football more, then yeah, they could definitely get after him and cause some problems there for Carr. I like the Colts side of this. I think a lot of people are on the same way. Jonathan Taylor now back-to-back weeks at over 90 yards rushing. He found the end zone last week as a receiver. If he can avoid the Nyheim Hines vulturing, this should be a game where Taylor continues to run the football well against a team that just allowed Ty Johnson to run for 100 yards against them. So I'm buying in on Taylor. Only $5,800 on DraftKings this week as well. So, it could be a really nice cash game play.
Yeah, listen, and if there's a good time to start him right now in a seasonal format, if you've got him for your playoffs, he's definitely a guy who I'm honing in on for this week. It's kind of funny. We're seeing that from a lot of these now rookie running backs. Like Cam Akers blew up last night. I was very surprised. It was one of the things that, I was kind of worried about was the fact that it was a short week for Cam Akers, and he had his only 20 carry game the week before. So on short rest, was that going to be a problem? Apparently it wasn't. So now I'm thinking all these coaches, they got all these top running backs with fresh legs right now. You're talking about Akers, you're talking about Taylor, you're talking about J.K. Dobbins being another one. Maybe you even see a little bit more Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting to see the usage is increasing right now for a lot of these rookie running backs.
Taylor's had more of a workload than the other guys this year because he has largely been their lead running back just for one reason or another. They had that couple game stretch where they pulled him in favor of Wilkins or Hines, and it was alluded to when they came out of that bye that he got banged up in that first game back, so maybe they were just taking it easy with him to allow him to recover, and now they've kind of unleashed him the last couple of weeks. But the other guys are right. We question the usage on Swift, Dobbins, and Akers all season long, and now we're seeing them starting to get more work and being productive in those bursts. So could have very well been the play. Could have been that they needed to get acclimated a little bit more to the NFL life, and now we're seeing the fruits of that.
And we are enjoying that. We are enjoying the fruits in that. Green Bay taking on Detroit. Man, I tell you, Detroit, they had their big game last week. First game without Matt Patricia. Now they have to host the Packers. I got to tell you, man, Aaron Rodgers just primed and ready for this MVP, right? Like, you didn't give me any kind of gifts during draft day. You didn't give me any kind of help. So I'm going to sit here and just kind of work this magic on my own and get the MVP. I think the Packers are going to roll in this game.
I mean, it would be a complete stunner for me to see that that the Lions are going to hang with Green Bay the way they're going. I said yesterday when we did one of our podcasts that the best bet you could almost make every week is the Devontae Adams first score. Like the Packers drive down their first drive, Rodgers throws a touchdown to Adams up 7-0. Like that's been the way the games have gone pretty much every week this season. So I like it a lot. Again, I'm sort of questioning the report that was put out there. If there was a typo or not, whether or not Matt LaFleur saying Allen Lazard is not going to be out there for 60 snaps. Because last week he only played 42 snaps, and that was 70% of their offense. So is it he's not going to be out there for 60% of the snaps or 60 snaps? That's something to certainly pay attention to for those Allen Lazard fantasy owners, and we'll have to figure that out as you make those decisions because he's been a big part of their offense. MVS has been non-existent since Lazard returned, and then Robert Tonyan now 3 straight weeks with a touchdown. So that Packers offense is really rolling. But Howard, the cover image of today's live stream was Aaron Jones, because we both think this is a great matchup for him as well.
I do. I think it's a fantastic matchup for him, as long as Aaron Rodgers is willing to share the love a little bit. Jones last week had to take matters into his own hands and bust out a 77-yard touchdown run because he just wasn't feeling it, right? So I would love to see Aaron Jones pop off and have another great game. This Detroit run defense is absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, it's not good. I think actually a sneaky play that we actually didn't even touch upon and maybe worth the dart throw book this week, dartboard this week, Howard, is Quintez Cephus. He's $3,200 on DraftKings. He got a touchdown pass last week, and the Lions released Marvin Hall last week. Cephus played the second most snaps among the receivers. They wanted to give their younger group more play as the season finished out. So, if there's a game where Detroit is trailing and they have to throw a ton, Stafford threw for over 400 yards last week. A guy like Cephus could be on your board while everybody's looking at Jones and Hawkinson.
It's a great point. It's a great point. Saints hosting the Eagles. This is the debut, the starting debut of Jalen Hurts. People talking about a lot of read option stuff there. Maybe Miles Sanders. Well, Miles Sanders has already said how excited he is to do the read option with Hurts. Saints defense, though, ranks number 1 right now. They've been absolutely amazing in the last several weeks. Does Jalen Hurts get slapped in the mouth, though, this week?
I mean, I think it's going to be really tough for a rookie quarterback making his debut against the way the Saints defense is playing right now. And they're running the read option, which, yes, I understand it's sort of like found new success in the NFL over recent seasons. But, who else runs a read option every day in practice? It's the Saints, because they have Taysom Hill. Right. So, they're prepared on how to stop this. Yeah, maybe they have to worry about Hurts throwing the ball a little bit more, but this is still the worst or second to worst offensive line basically in football. Carson Wentz was on pace to lead the NFL in sacks. I think he was on pace to be like the 4th or 5th most sacked quarterback in NFL history this year. There's no protection on this line, and now they're going up against this Saints defense. So I'm out on everything Philadelphia this week.
I love it. Washington taking on San Francisco. Washington obviously coming off of this huge upset of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The 49ers are coming off of getting absolutely waxed by the Rams last week. It's the Alex Smith revenge game narrative, right? We liked Andy Dalton in his matchup. Can we get on board with Alex Smith going up against his former team?
Maybe a little bit. My biggest problem obviously with Alex Smith is that the downfield passing threat isn't really there. He's got to really dink and dunk his way all the way to fantasy production. But no Antonio Gibson, in theory, should mean they're going to be throwing a lot more. Peyton Barber's trash. I understand he's going to vulture a 1-yard touchdown at some point in this game, but it's a guy that averages 3 yards per carry for his career. I think this year he's even running for less than 3 yards per carry. So I think it's going to be a ton of J.D. McKissic. I don't think it's no joke that Gibson goes out and McKissic gets 10 targets last week. In previous weeks, we saw McKissic get 14 and 15 targets with Alex Smith under center. So I think there's going to be a lot of short passing. I think we can go back to Logan Thomas. But Howard, you're focused on, I think, maybe the wrong revenge game here. You have Alex Smith going up against San Francisco. You have Jordan Reed going against Washington this week. And if you want to talk tight ends, I think Reed could be the play this week.
He might have been, but you just said his name, which means he just got hurt.
Well, fingers crossed that he doesn't stub a toe on the way to the locker room today, because I think he's got a really good spot this week.
The all revenge team. We're going to have to put one of those together, right?
We'll do it. We'll get it going.
See if it works. Atlanta crossing the country to go against the Chargers. They will do this without Julio Jones. Now, that's always the big problem. I was already in on the Chargers anyway because Justin Herbert needs that get-right game after getting waxed by Belichick and the Patriots last week. The Falcons, Matt Ryan, without Julio Jones, is not the same quarterback. I'd love to see if opportunities knocking for Russell Gage to have a bigger day, or, Olamide Zaccheaus is obviously a guy who seems to step up when Julio's out, but I feel like this game could be all Chargers.
I am 100% on board with you there. I think that Julio is a big part of their offense. And I kind of had this conversation with somebody earlier today, and they're talking about, Julio hasn't been there all season. He hasn't really been that good this year, but that's not true. He's been just outside of a wide receiver 1 in half-point PPR leagues this year in terms of average fantasy points per game. It's just when he's not there, he just obviously hasn't been able to produce. But when on the field for the Falcons this season, he's been, one of their top overall receivers. So, I think it's a big blow. Russell Gage hasn't really had a lot of success when forced into that wide receiver 2 role. Hayden Hurst has been, hit or miss all season long. So I'm with you here. I think this is all Chargers in this one. Plus, we like it when the Chargers are home dogs. They usually end up covering that spread, and I think they come through with the win here.
All right. Sunday night action should be a fun one. Pittsburgh against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Josh Allen coming off of one of the best games. Pittsburgh didn't really look that great in their loss to Washington. They've had some struggles recently, but let's face it, this passing attack is Big Ben, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster. I think if the receivers hold on to the ball, I think this one, the over/under is 48. I'm surprised that it's this low. I'm definitely ready to smash the over.
You just hit the nail on the head right there. That's the biggest thing lately, I think, for this Pittsburgh offense and why it hasn't, maybe jumped off the page lately. There was a stat, I think Pro Football Focus tweeted out that over the last 2 weeks, they have, I think it was 13 or 14 drop passes, which is more than double the second team. So they're just not holding on the football. As I watched Eric Ebron, I think versus Baltimore, drop 3 straight pass attempts thrown to him.
Horrible.
That whole offense just drops footballs, and that really stalls out their drives. But the volume of the pass attack is there. Deontay Johnson, if he can stay healthy throughout the game, is going to end up with 10, 12, 13 targets there. Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster are all going to be in there, and Ebron himself. So this is a very pass-first offense, and I love this matchup against Buffalo. You can throw against them. We know that Buffalo likes to go downfield as well, so I'm expecting a shootout here, and I think that both passing offenses are going to be in for a good day.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. I like a lot of Gabriel Davis along with Stephon Diggs. I know everybody's going to be in on Beasley this week, but you know what? The front seven for the Steelers is a lot better than what their secondary is. So I feel like the downfield action is going to definitely be
Gabriel
abundant.
Davis in my Sunday night showdown lineup, captain spot's going to be locked in. So,
boom. Really, I was going to throw Isaiah McKenzie in there, but all right, you say Gabe Davis.
I mean, listen, if you're making multiple lineups, you probably should, because he seemingly finds his way into the end zone every now and again. Also,
yeah, he really does. All right, let's wrap things up here with the Monday night action. Baltimore Ravens at Cleveland Browns. It's a big AFC North battle right now. Lamar Jackson needs a get-right game, or I mean, listen, he was okay. He threw for 170 yards.
Yeah, it was kind of a get-right game, but not so much for the passing. It was more so the running. If Lamar Jackson's making plays with his legs, like we saw, then everything else I think opens up for him. But when he's not running as well, defenses aren't really as threatened by him. Going off for a huge run like he did against Dallas, where he had 94 yards and a score. He had 2 passing touchdowns and 100 yards. So, yes, the threat of him throwing hasn't been there, but teams really have to worry about him running, because earlier this year he had a knee? I think he was dealing with a knee injury. So, I think some of that has been a little bit of hesitation, a lot of why they're rotating in so many of the running backs there. But I like it against Cleveland. I think this is going to be a really tough spot. I said this is more so a show-me game for Baker Mayfield. You can beat up on all the bad teams in the NFL. All of your production has come in these games against bottom teams in DVOA. But now you're getting Baltimore, a really tough defense that gave you fits back in week 1. So we'll see if they can come through here and turn things around. We're getting back-to-back weeks of Browns and primetime games. They even flexed your Browns and Giants next week to a primetime game. So we'll see what Baker can do when the lights are the brightest.
Well, I mean, listen, the bottom line is it all comes down to how well they're running the ball, because Baker shines when he's in play action, right? And that's really what you're going to do. So, the big problem that they had the first time they played the Ravens, that was week 1, they just got decimated because they just didn't run the football like they were supposed to. Like, they spent the entire offseason talking about how they were going to run the football, the zone blocking scheme, everything that Stefanski took from Kubiak and Dennison in Minnesota and brought it over to Cleveland. And week 1 started and they just wiped it out. Like, it was like, oh, forget it. Forget the plan. We're just going to kind of wing it here. And that is really what did them in. So I think that what we're looking at here is we're going to need to see a lot of Nick Chubb early on in this game, try and wear down that defense, and then get the play action to kind of open things up a little bit more for Baker Mayfield. So we shall see. We shall see. All right. Well, there you go, guys. Boom. In a nutshell, that's your Week 14 preview. Splash of seasonal, splash of DFS. We even threw in a little gambling in there, right? A little over-under action. Oh, yeah. Taking points, not taking points. John, final thoughts here before we scoot on out.
Good luck to everybody that's in their fantasy playoffs. Obviously, we here at FA Nation wish you the best.
Wow, that was heartfelt, dude. Right there. That is going to do it for us. And yes, we do wish you all the best of luck. Yeah, listen. Bottom line is, if you guys don't win titles, you're disappointing us. It's your fault.
Yeah.
And we're really disappointed in you. That's going to do it for us. Big thanks to our producer, Ed Bonnell, today. Appreciate the effort there. Big thanks to all of you for tuning in. For Jon Impemba, I'm Howard Bender. This has been Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. We'll catch you next time.